Well, today's episode with Stuart Williams from Rolux on Silicon Springbok podcast is a bit of a tearjerker. I got a little bit emotional hearing his story of the challenges that he's been through as a founder of this now incredible business, but has really been through some hard times. The Silicon Springbok podcast really tries to aim to give the stories of those who are building great businesses and products in South Africa, not despite the challenges, but because of them. They're using those challenges to forge great products, great services, and great businesses. So let's, without further ado, hand over to Stuart Williams. Stuart, very interestingly, you describe that you've gone from selling warm oats in the London Underground at some point, and today you run a company that sells lawnmowers to people in the desert. That's kind of an interesting track that you've been on. So let's get into it. Why is selling lawnmowers a sexy business? How did you get into that, and what is selling lawnmowers all about?
It was purely opportunistic, and it's classic of my dad to come across an opportunity like this. My dad and my brother have worked in Stratham Park for the last 25 years, Stratham Park in Johannesburg. And the one day my dad just said, well, I'd heard that there was this small shop for sale in Stratham Park. Let me go and see if it's available. So my dad rocked up at the shop, and there was a lady there, and it turns out that the lady was selling the business. She said, you're right, we're selling the business, but we're not actually just selling the shop. We're selling this plus the factory in Babalegi and 2 brands, which includes Rolux and Professional. And he was shocked to hear that behind this, small little shop in Stratham Park was actually this pretty big business. And I ended up coming back from my travels to help with my family's transition to buying the business with no real intention of getting involved day to day. But when I saw the opportunity and my dad had invested obviously some money, I knew I needed to help look after it. And that's really how I got involved with it.
So when I think about it, it's like, well, before I think you were in private equity, right? And you think private equity is all about like investing in these really like big tech businesses and so forth. And lawnmowers, how can lawnmowers be attractive? Though if you think about it, every grass patch in a city or anywhere that's going to be used needs to be cut, I suppose.
Yes.
And so think about a gigantic market. So within that market, like, obviously you've got like golf courses and like massive things. And I'm sure that there's like a whole range, if you really think about it, of professional like mowing equipment. But so where does Rolux like fit in, and what's hard about mowing? Why can't anybody just build a mower and export that? Like what's difficult about this?
You're saying, I came from the private equity world and I came into an unsexy business, but in the private equity world, I was actually not involved in very sexy businesses at all. The company we were involved with, I kind of got put into the unsexy one. So I was very used to seeing the unsexy and I've become super familiar with it. So to me, actually, lawnmowers was very sexy because as you say, grass does grow, particularly in more warm climates and closer to the equator. You see almost year-round grass growth. And then when you look at just grass cutting as being the entry point, actually you move into a whole range of worlds, whether it's cutting trees, whether it's cutting bushes, whether it's foresting equipment, milling equipment, whether you're building bunkers for the golf courses, you name it. You can go into all sorts of things that relate to the landscaping industry. And so it's really, to me, it was never about it being sexy or unsexy. It was more about seeing where there was an opportunity in the space. So the first thing we saw was the brand Rolux is an incredibly well-known brand in South Africa. And we assumed that because of how long it had been around, that it was well-known outside of South Africa too. Maybe not very well-known, but at least there was some international legs for us to be able to kind of play off the brand in South Africa and the loyal following in South Africa to build it overseas. But at the time we bought the company, we didn't actually know that there was a massive international market for our products. So we decided, well, let's try 2 different strategies. Let's go into the mass market, trying to be sort of price competitive, create as much product as we can, and can we sell and compete on those levels? And then the other side was, let's focus on the professional products, which is more your cylinder lawnmowers, relatively high in 20 to 40,000 rand in price, more for a lawnmower enthusiast, pretty niche. And so to see where is our brand best exposed? And the reality was that the mass market stuff is a price play, and a price play for us is a very difficult market to play because you can get cheap stuff made from anywhere in the world. The bigger opportunity was focusing on those people that are actually lawn care enthusiasts or lawn care nuts, as they're regarded in the industry. And because they're willing to pay a lot more for a higher quality product. Not only that, but the spillover when you're at the top end of the domestic market is into the middle of the commercial market. And our thinking was, well, there are lots and lots of municipal golf courses out there, are lots and lots of municipalities and parks and sports fields and lower income schools and, even middle income schools that need good quality equipment that can't afford the stuff that's on the market right now. And yet they're still prepared to pay a premium to the residential stuff. So that was where we kind of started honing in on this niche. And that's provided us with some incredible international opportunities, including selling into the desert like Oman and Qatar, which has been a phenomenal experience to ever fathom that we would be selling lawnmowers into the desert. It's pretty wild.
I assume it's golf courses in the desert or something with grass.
It's high end households, and it's also that have access to a lot of desalinated water, and it's also golf courses and parks. So we, as an example, in Oman, we help look after, through our partner there, we help look after the kings or the sultans properties. So those greeneries, those green spaces, because they're so expensive to create, it's very important that they look after them. And that's where we kind of found an opportunity to come in and provide our products.
So, your skill's certainly not in, I would say, manufacturing. You're not a mechanical engineer or something like that, and you figured out a better way to cut grass, and this is all about the product performance. So if I had to guess, a lot of this business is, there's probably a lot of embedded historical knowledge of how to build these things, how to build them well, but it's really doing well in a niche, focusing on that niche and executing well, if I had to guess. So if I had to roll back a little bit before that, I understand you were in private equity and you said you were focusing on these unsexy parts of this private equity opportunity. Tell us a bit about that. So what are some of the things you learned? What were the experiences you gained there that then helped you be a better CEO today?
Well, I started off my career after Rhodes, and by the way, Rhodes was a fantastic foundation, because if you can pass at Rhodes, you can succeed in anything in life. I say that because of all the jawling that takes place. But I moved into
with a pickled brain.
Yeah.
You can pass, and you're doing what?
So I finished off at Rhodes, went into PwC, and I was in metals and mining, and I was exposed to a whole range of companies within metals and mining at PwC. But to be quite honest with you, the corporate world wasn't for me, and I got figured out very fast. I left at right as I could at the end of my articles, and I moved into a very small private equity company. Genesis Capital Partners had founded a little company called Genesis Industrial Holdings, which held all of our industrial assets. And I was then involved with a scaffolding business, a clothing business, an electrical business, a lighting business, whereas some of our other investments were like in schools and in media in the States and in properties and in all sorts of very, very sexy things and food, but I found my thing as the person who could go into these companies unfazed and kind of try and help Genesis to solve the problems that were in those companies, together with the team, of course, not just me. But the things that I saw were pretty unbelievable for a 27, 28-year-old. We had to act very quickly when we were running out of money. I had to deal with creditors on the phone. I had to deal with creditors coming and sitting in front of me. In fact, the one time a creditor came and sat across from me and demanded his 35,000 rand. And obviously, all I was doing was just assisting and facilitating this whole story. And he put a gun down and he put a knife down, and he basically said, "Now you choose which option do you want here? Either pay me or we can sort this out another way." And I was just like, "All right, cool, no problem. I'm not here to fight. I'm just trying to do a job." But to be a 25-year-old, 26-year-old doing that is very scary at the time. You get to go away from that going, I'm out of here. But then at the same time, you start learning very quickly how to develop a thick skin. Another time I had to deal with 40 to 50 retrenchments when the person who was running the show left, and sort of left me to handle it. That was really hard because I'd only been there helping out for a few months.
Tell me about what it's like to sit across from somebody who's probably in their late 40s or in their 50s and tell them they've got no more job, and you have to do this because otherwise everybody will lose their jobs, the company will fail.
That was exactly the conversation that we had to have. I had to have a couple of times. And I'll never forget, some of those people were unlikely to ever get a job again just because of the nature of their job and the amount of, I knew that their type of job in this country was dropping, the numbers of jobs in their particular roles was dropping. And the feeling that you get is like one of, like you've let somebody down, like you 100%, I obviously went in there with the best intentions, and then this happens, and it's not only my decision, it's a board decision. And then I'm the one who's got to sit across from the people and talk to them, and you do get blamed, no matter what happens. When you're the person sitting in front of them, you do get blamed. And I could never understand it, but I do get, like, somebody's got to take the fall. At that point in time, it was me, and I was just the person there. And but I can tell you that it's not something I'd wish on my worst enemy. It is the worst feeling on the planet to have to tell somebody that as of Monday, you've got no job. The one thing we did do right was always pay them out properly and more than what was supposed to be paid. And we also tried to help find them other jobs. Very limited success there. But, even when we sold a company, if there was something that had to be done, or, they were going to get, lose people, shed jobs, or whatever it may be, we would try to find a way to help those people. But honestly, I couldn't think of a worse thing in the world than having to tell somebody that they don't have a job on a Monday.
Have you had to lay off people at Rolux? Has it been something you've had to say to some people, sorry, you just don't fit anymore?
We've had to. COVID was a hard one because we got shut down for 6 weeks, and then we came back, and we didn't have enough steel to meet the demand, and we were going into winter. It was a combination of real, just big issues. We had to let a few people go then. And since, we've had to just let people go ad hoc. So, when Australia slowed down, we had to let 3 or 4 people go. It wasn't 40 or 50 like I had to at one of the companies before, but still 3 or 4 people that you've come to know, that are friendly with you, that you see every day. That's not easy, eh? And I think especially in our business now, it's harder for me to let those people go because I see them every day. This is our family business. It's not like it was at Genesis where it was their company. It felt like it was my company, but at the end of the day, this is my family's business. And that it comes with a level of blame when that happens. And all you can do is just try to do your best for them, and know that when you do let them go, that there's a chance in future that you could bring them back. And actually, we have successfully brought a lot back. When we shut down our factory in Babalegi, since we moved a lot of people back to Johannesburg, and we've since rehired probably 3/4 of the people who were let go of. And also, a lot of those people moved on to other suppliers of ours, which is really nice.
So tell me a bit about, have you had a near-death experience at Rolux? What was the cause of that?
We've had the hardest, definitely the hardest. We've had lots of near-death experiences, whether it was just a bad decision, or a supply let us down, or stock not arriving, or a ship being delayed by 2 months, or COVID. Lots of things that were kind of outside of our control. But there was a 4-month period in 2021 that just absolutely rocked our world, and particularly my world. On the March the 10th, my wife gave birth to our twins, to our twin boys, mid-COVID, so March 10th, 2021. 4 days later, I was actually in Cape Town for the day just to work, and I got a phone call from our Australian customer to say that 3 containers of product that he'd received were basically unusable, quality issues, so many quality issues, he just didn't know what to do with it. I mean, for us, those 3 containers, when they got orders, was the best thing that's ever happened to us, because it was validation of our business. It was validation of our product. It was that we could meet an international standard. We were so excited to be delivering these products. And when they got them, there was just full of quality issues. I mean, I can't even tell you, like off the top of my head, there were like 100 items that were a problem. And I phoned my dad straight after that call. I was in tears. And I said to him, Dad, I think we've got to shut this factory down. In fact, I think we might have to shut the business down, because I don't know if they call us on the quality and we've got to return these goods and the money, we're absolutely dead in the water. And it was my dad was also in tears, and he's a very emotional guy. Obviously, this is his, heart and soul's gone into this, and obviously money too. But, that was the 14th of March, 2021. We made some massively drastic decisions that day, including we were going to shut down the factory because of the quality concerns, because the reasons for the issues was our tools and molds were actually not in the best state. So the best solution was to send those off to our suppliers so that they could fix the tools on our behalf. If they could fix the tools, they could then build the cost of those tools back into the price of the product they sell to us. So it just was an easy capital decision for us. It meant that we had flexibility. I'd always wanted to be an assembly plant and not a manufacturer. And it meant that we could work with high quality manufacturers to deliver product to us. Within the space of 2 months, so by the end of May, we had outsourced every single product. Our team, particularly my younger brother, went off and outsourced every single part to a different supplier around the country. Some doing multiple, some doing just one. We started getting product in, but I'd said to my team, we have to shut down the factory in Babalegi, guys. We've got to use this as an opportunity to get rid of all of the machinery and tooling, and let's move back to Johannesburg. And a lot of the staff obviously moved back at the same time. But as we were moving back to Johannesburg, I got COVID, and so did my younger brother, so did my older brother. I got it really bad. I got pneumonia, and I had clots, and I was bedbound for a month. I was in hospital for a week. And this all came at the same time. So in the space of 3 months, we had all of these issues. And there were lots more that I can't even talk about. It was day-to-day problems that was happening. We then got, because of the way we'd solved our Australia problem, we got an order from Australia for like 6 times the volume of what we'd stuffed up before. So now all of a sudden we had to meet this demand. And if we didn't meet this demand now, we were going to be in trouble, because they had a season that was starting 4 months later, So there was all this pressure. It was family pressure. Obviously, it's my family business. It was my kids that were brand new. I was quarantined, and so was my wife from the kids. It was when I had COVID, and I was sick, and I genuinely thought I was going to die, because I think you go through such crazy emotional turmoil at that point. It was shutting down a factory. It was retrenching a few people. It was outsourcing to third-party suppliers. And this all happened in 3 to 4 months. And at the end of that 4 or 5 month period, so say September 2021, we then moved into our local season, which was also just kept really difficult, because there was supply chain worldwide was a nightmare. You couldn't get stock in from overseas. You couldn't get steel from Mitchell. We were just, that 2021 period was the best year and worst year of my life. And when I tell you we came close to death, we were like this close to death. It was, centimeters from it.
Why didn't you, if I can ask, why didn't you give up?
Because
I'm sure you could have gone back and got a job, go back to private equity, lots of people. Like, why do all of this? Why do you carry on?
The beauty about a family business is that you've got those people around you who you look at and go, I can't let this person down, firstly. Secondly, they're looking at you and saying, don't worry, it's going to be okay. We're going to work this out. It's going to be fine. And I also personally got my family in this situation. So it's not like I couldn't stomach giving up and walking away. Couldn't. I did, though, a year later. So I'll fast forward a little bit. In 2022, we delivered a lot of stock to Australia, but the Australian economy started going down with high interest rates, and things were not great. And the COVID hangover sort of kicked in, which was, people who had overspent before now holding back, and particularly on luxury type purchases like our product. And we were then stuck with a whole heap of stock in late 2022. we were fine during late 22, early 23 because we'd had a good season in South Africa. But come February, March 2023, we were actually on the brink of collapse. We were centimeters away again, and we just we were going to run out of cash, and we had all this product that was sitting there waiting to sell. We couldn't sell locally because nobody can afford it, and we couldn't send it to Australia. And I said to my brother and I were sitting, and I said to him, Bruce, I don't know what we're going to do, but I think that the best answer is for us to chuck the stuff in a container and send it to the States. The year before, I'd been to a trade show in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'd seen that particular product had a place. And I was the only person at that show. I can guarantee you, I was the only person at that show was looking at that product and saying, does it have a space here? It's just such a small part of the overall lawnmower outdoor care, turf care market in the States. So I said to my brother, why not? I mean, do we have a better chance of selling it in South Africa during winter or in America during summer? And we weighed up the pros and the cons, and we said, we have to. We actually don't have a choice. If we hadn't made that decision at that point in time, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. It absolutely saved our business, that decision. And it wasn't only my decision, of course. Once Bruce and I discussed it and made that call, we went to our team and said, guys, is this a dumb idea or a good idea? Spoke to my dad, who was mega supportive. He's a super entrepreneurial guy and was so supportive of this. And he said, I think that we can do this. And Bruce and I went into just overdrive. Our team just went wild with getting the stuff into the States. Now, just remember the timing. August is the last time you're going to sell turf care equipment in the States. Okay. And so it was now May. It takes 6 weeks to get to America, and we needed to get there before the beginning of August. So we now had basically a 2-month period to make sure the stock was on water, ready, that we had all of our certifications, permissions, registrations, licenses, bank accounts, websites, you name it, up and selling in America before the product got there. And we sold out every single product before the goods arrived in the States on the 20th of July. So in a 2-month period, we literally sold out. And it was like a serious Hail Mary that resulted in 100% the best decision we've ever made. And because it's such a niche product, you're never going to, you can't, there's not too much demand that you can't meet it. You can always have the kind of Tesla effect, like people wait a little bit for the product. They know that it's coming and they're quite understanding. Americans are very understanding and nice and patient and supportive. And I was amazed at the reception to our machine and also to our customer service. And I think that was the big difference between what everyone else has kind of been doing and what we're doing. We know we have good quality products, but not everyone can give the level of service that we give. And that is what we pride ourselves on.
But just before that, sending of the stuff to the US, I think you shared with me that you wanted to leave the business. You had reached a point where you kind of given up, and there were some personal challenges that you were also going through. So I think there was a lot at stake there. Tell us a bit about it.
In February, March last year, when we were seeing these cash flow issues coming through, and I honestly didn't know the direction with which to take this business. I've made some pretty bad decisions, I think. We were trying to push the Rolux brand locally as a consumer brand. The reality is that Massmart and the like, the big box stores, were not taking up our product because of history and also because they've kind of got the competition in now. And it's a slow cycle of change. We try to bring in other products to try and just differentiate our range. Nothing was working. And the problem is that because nobody was really getting wealthier in South Africa, the top end of our consumer market wasn't growing for those products that we needed to sell to make decent margin. And I didn't know where to go. And I'd reached a point of like clinical depression. I'd reached a point of total failure, to the point where I went to like my GP and I went to psychiatrists, and I spoke to my family about it, and I spoke to my dad and my brothers, and I said, guys, I think I'm out. I think I'm out. Not because I'm giving up, but I think you guys need somebody who can actually run this thing differently to me. I don't think I'm the best guy for the job here. And my dad and my brothers understood, and Jonathan, our other shareholder, understood, but I think disagreed. And I think it was like their support. I ended up writing a letter to them to resign. I'd resigned. I'd actually mailed them to resign. And obviously John and my dad called me and said, we understand if this is really what you want to do, but we don't think you should. And and it was a very, very hectic time because I'd just seen so many downs and so few ups, that, and personally was really struggling. I just wasn't well. I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, I think that it's a hard thing. Sorry, I feel emotional too, but because I think we all go through this. Am I good enough? You hit all these failures, and okay, cool. Being an entrepreneur is about failing a lot, but you still question, am I good enough? Is the problem me?
I think I'm starting to learn that that's a skill, actually, to be able to know that you're not the be-all and end-all of life. And that's actually the most important people in my business are my family and my team. And I'm really now trying to build something that doesn't work with me there. I want it to work without me there. It does work without me there. It works perfectly. And I think that that's realizing that you're a part of the team. You aren't the team. And I've never felt that I was that. But my team, when I felt down and I spoke to them, just 100% stepped up. My family did the same, and I think that when you're in such a dark, deep hole, you don't think of talking to those people because you see it as a weakness. And by speaking to them and telling them and sending that letter to them or that email, they understood how really bad things were for me. I was taking everything so personally, but I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't know where it was. It wasn't there. What I've learned also was that we're so self-critical. Jeez, I just sometimes think that we think that success is, just going to happen magically overnight. I was lucky having shareholders that were super understanding, and my dad and John and my family, who were supportive of this type of thing and the stuff-ups that I'd made. And, I talk about the stuff-ups. I'm not even talking about the good stuff. But the problem is that's part of the issue, right? You dwell on those things that you've done because of those decisions you've made. You're like, geez, I made such a dumb decision there, without thinking about the great decisions that you made. And I think that's human nature. Maybe it's not human nature. I don't know. It's my nature.
So your American epiphany to send stuff over here has continued to provide dividends. And is there a lesson there to learn around what you should not be afraid to try? Because always America is meant to be this, yes, obviously huge country, but must be very hard. And I'm thinking in my mind, right, this relates to this problem that we have, I think, as South African entrepreneurs, that we think we're not good enough. You feel you're not good enough to run your own company because it's backing and so forth. And then like, well, how the hell could I ever compete against American companies? Because surely they're all those people and companies are just on another level.
Yeah.
Must be.
Yes.
Right? Or
I think it's about okay, so yes, we opened up our offices in Kennesaw, Georgia, and we're seeing huge opportunities in Texas. But I would never have known this if we weren't forced into this conversation. And that's where luck is so big. I was so lucky to have gone to that conference and to that show in the States. I was lucky that this Australia issue actually came up, because I think we would have just sat on our hands not doing it, because I was trying to wait for the right moment. There's never a right moment. That's the truth. It's just when really the hard began, like the really hard work, when the really stressful times began, we said, what do we have to lose, guys? And I think that's taught me a lot about smart risk taking, because when we made that decision, it wasn't just a guess. We went onto our whiteboard and we kind of mapped out the whole thing that we had to do. And we said, firstly, is this going to solve some of our cash flow problems? Yes or no? Secondly, is it going to result in a market for us at a very cheap entry point? And the market was yes. The answer was yes. And then the next thing was, well, can we actually do it? What is it that's stopping us? And that was the unknown, because we didn't know how we were going to sell the stuff when it was on its way. But when you've done this, you have no choice. You just make a plan. And this is where I love South Africans. South Africans are so full of geest. There's so much resourcefulness that, like, you think that you can't do it until you're forced into a position that you have to do it, and you do. And I think South Africans don't realize that every single day we're having to solve those problems, whatever the problems are, tiny little problems to major problems. And you're just in constant problem-solving mode. And that is the edge that we have on the rest of the world. We are solving problems all the time. And not only that, we're a very customer-demanding nation without even realizing it. We are so demanding as customers. We demand the very best of everything, that when we take something to America and we give the best customer service and we try to provide a world-class product, we are in the top 0.01% of suppliers of that thing. It's not to say that we can sell anything and just make money. I don't think that's the case. It's that if you go in and think you can just compete with Microsoft or IBM, whoever it may be, in the overall packages, you can't. Same with us. We can't go in and try and compete with the major players in Home Depot and Lowe's. You can't do it. The beauty about the American market, though, is that you can zone in on a tiny little sector of an industry in one city of one state, and you can do well enough to justify having invested there. If you don't have to put too many boots on the ground, if you don't have to, incur massive costs to be able to earn the revenue.
And this is it. I think this is also why, what the Silicon Springbok podcast is about, is that we want to recognize founders and entrepreneurs who've built something, not despite the challenges of being in South Africa. We know that they're real. The problem solving that we have to do, because there are problems, but because of those challenges, that is what makes us more resilient, more creative, willing to go the extra mile to solve those issues. Which, if you grow up in a very comfortable, let's say, suburb in West Houston, like where I am, I'm telling you, the kids and the teenagers and the young adults, they just don't get that training. It's not the laboratory of the training ground that produces great entrepreneurs. It makes you into obese, slow, comfort animals. So there's something about South Africa I think we need to recognize that makes us really competitive globally. And that what you've done a little bit is take a couple of bets every now and then. Back yourself. I know you feel as an entrepreneurial founder, like maybe it's the wrong decision. Maybe today I don't feel so pumped. Today I don't feel the motivation. But you've got to take a couple of big bets. You got to, I don't want to use the word believe in yourself. I really think it's based upon recognize that you probably operate in one of the toughest places to do business. And if you're doing it, if you can make it there, then maybe you can make it anywhere. Take a bet, calculated one. But there's something in your story to really encourage people around that. So thanks so much, Stuart. It's been awesome chatting to you. And I wish you all the best and hope to see you in Texas
Thanks
soon.
so much. I appreciate it, man.
Okay, man.
Cool.
Thank you so much to Stuart Williams of Rolux. Really appreciate your honesty and taking us through that story of how you've built Rolux into great business today. Here are some of our social media links. Please reach out to us, give us some feedback, some suggestions. We really appreciate if you want to nominate somebody to come onto the podcast who you think is a Silicon Springbok. Thank you so much for listening today, and we look forward to seeing you again in future podcasts.